to you this evening, Lord, and God, we just, first of all, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for these servants that have assumed such a great responsibility. We thank you for Mayor Pascal, council members Robinson, Cleveland, Tiskus, Wilder, and for the city staff gathered tonight. God, we just ask that you preside over this meeting, Lord, that you bless these people. Father, let your presence be felt. Let the conversations and the decisions that are made here this evening, Father, let them be tempered with grace and wisdom. Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet freely, Lord, tonight, for the opportunity to introduce you into this proceeding, God. Father, we just come to you tonight, and again, we ask that you open our ears, open our hearts tonight, and just bless everyone in attendance at this meeting. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for being here, sir. We greatly appreciate that. We'll wait for the clock to strike 6:30, and then we'll call the meeting to order. If you could hang tight with me just for a moment. It is now 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 27th. We'll call to order the regular meeting of the Weatherford City Council. We do announce that we have a quorum present. All members are with us this evening. Item 3 is pledges of allegiance to the United States and Texas flags. That'll be led this evening by Council Member Jeff Robinson.
If you would, please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you for that, sir. Item 4 on the agenda is items of community interest. Mr. Hotop, do you have anything to share with us tonight,
We
sir?
have a few things. On April 24th, we hosted a Take Back Meds event at the Weatherford 9th Grade Center. So that's the 12th event that we've held to take back unexpired medications and keep those out of the hands of kids and the landfill and our waterways. To date, we've collected over 5,000 pounds of unused medications or expired medications, so a really good community-wide event. There is, you're starting to see a lot of press about a movie that was filmed here, 12 Mighty Orphans, which is a film about a youth football team from the Texas Masonic Home, and they're in Fort Worth. So that was filmed out at the Pythian home, the majority of that, and so there's a lot of press releases coming out about that right now. You'll see a lot more about that. That opens on June 11th. That was actually the first movie that's been filmed in Weatherford, so it's really cool. We hosted police department hosted Coffee with a Cop last Tuesday at Panera Bread, and so that's something that's going to be starting back up monthly, and that's an opportunity for the police department and citizenry to interact just on a very one-on-one, just informal setting that's out there. We also hosted a groundbreaking for our new public safety building yesterday, which is a really good event. Had over 200 folks that attended that, and several elected officials from across the county and representatives from Bill King's office and Drew Springer's office and actually Kay Granger's office as well. That'll be a new 38,000 square foot building on Fort Worth Highway, and the completion of that should be around September of 2022 is when that will be completed. And the last thing to report is longtime city employee and former council member passed away, recently held his funeral, and that was Clem Smith. So Clem started with the police department in 1974 and worked until 1999, where he retired as the deputy chief. Immediately upon his retirement, he actually got elected to city council and served in the city council until 2009, and eventually being mayor pro tem of the city council. And so a lot of people know him from that, but a lot of people know him for some other stuff that happened around town. Clem was a lifelong member of the Prince Memorial Church right over here off Oak Street. He was an avid golfer when Live Oak still existed. A lot of people would find him up there, but where a lot of people know him is from his interaction with youth sports. So he coached the Chiefs in the Optimist Club for a long time, and he was a basketball referee, a baseball umpire, and a football referee for many, many years. And so touched a lot of people's lives, and a really good man for anybody that got a chance to release him. So.
True community service. Any other items, council, anybody else? Thank you for that, Mr. Hotop. Item 5 on the agenda, council, is consent agenda items. We have 5A through 5H. Would anybody like to pull an item? Please say so at this time.
I'd like to pull item 5D and 5E.
I'd like to pull items 5B and 5G.
Any others? We have 5B, 5D, 5E, and 5G removing from the slate. That leaves 5A, 5C, 5F, and 5H, if I'm correct. We can entertain as a body. Is that okay with the council? So, okay. Have a motion for approval by Matt Tiskus, second by Kevin Cleveland. Is there any items of discussion for those before we call for a vote?
Could we make a correction?
I need all the correction I can get.
I made the motion.
Okay, excuse me. The screen indicates Matt Tiskus and Kevin Cleveland. I'm sorry. So you can take it up with Matt, but I've got to go by the screen.
I did
Wait,
screen.
wait.
Okay,
Are y'all cross-logged?
okay.
Are we,
For the record, Mayor Pro Tem, did you make the motion?
No, seriously, this is scary a little bit because,
Mr. Tiskus, for the record, you stating you did not make the.
That's
motion?
correct, I did
Okay.
not
Mayor
make
Pro Tem, did you make the motion?
yes, sir, I
Okay.
did.
Mr. Cleveland, did you second that motion?
I did.
All right. The computers are haunted this evening.
Move the nameplates.
No.
Hey, she's Tiskus.
to switch?
That's the problem.
Did you log in as Matt?
I didn't.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We're all human. All righty, just for clarification, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Wilder, a second by Kevin Cleveland, to approve items 5A, C, F, and H. Madam City Secretary, is that how you have it?
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, is that what your motion was?
Yes,
Councilman
sir.
Cleveland, are we ready to proceed?
I'm ready.
Any items of discussion on these before we call for a vote? All right, let's vote on these items. Indicate yea or nay, please. It's your convenience. That passes 5-0. All right, let's go back up to 5B. Consider a final plat for the 137 residential lot Waterford Park subdivision on 44.253 acres out of the Texas and Pacific Railway Company survey, abstract number 1499, and the John McCullough survey, abstract number 911, City of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, SBD 2021-0014. Welcome, Mr. Kettner. Good evening.
Yes, just to kind of give a little bit of background on this request that you have for you. This is for a 137 lot residential lot, and going to give some additional background. This property was zoned in September of 2003 and is a plan to development that was filed with a conceptual master plan at that time. And then the property was then sold in 2004 to a different developer. And in March of 2020, the master plat, preliminary plat, was then filed and went before the Planning Commission and the council and was approved at that time. And the property was again sold in October of 2020 to a new developer who is proceeding with this plat that you have before you at this time. And just to clarify, with zoning subdivision and design standards, our engineering standards that are required there, zoning is a discretionary action, and that's the policing power, the greatest power that the city has in controlling development as it comes in is through the zoning, which in this case was issued in 2003. The subdivision regulations are prescriptive, or they're listed items that are specifically adopted by the council and are enforced by staff through the subdivision regulations. We recently updated those subdivision regulations, and the engineering design manual is enforced by staff as the technical document for the submission of the details. Almost all planning commissions and council leave it to their technical staff and professional staff who are licensed and certified to review these based on the adopted regulations, these technical aspects of the code that have been adopted by the community. Those best practices are implemented and put in place in our approvals and recommendations to the council, and on plats, when they meet those criteria, those thresholds, by state law, it's mandated to the cities. We have a 30-day shot clock to approve with conditions, deny with conditions, or approve as submitted on those. And It is our practice as they are submitted and reviewed. This project specifically already went through the preliminary plating process, met the criteria for that. They're moving forward with the final plat process, which meets the criteria with the conditions outlined in the subdivision, in your staff report that's in your packets. There was the 5 criteria that was listed there as conditions of approval that was recommended by the Planning Commission at their April 14th meeting, unanimously by the Planning Commission. All of the design criteria, technical aspects are adopted and developers are required not to increase any issues that may exist, technical aspects, for example, like drainage or traffic. We have specific levels that we have those set at, and that's what we require them to meet, and that's what we base our recommendations off of. And those technical documents are approved through the engineering process, through the site development process. And if you have any questions about this particular case, I'd be glad to answer any.
Council, questions for Mr. Kettner? We do have several speaker cards completed, so we'll hear from an applicant and then our citizens following that. Questions for staff?
I do.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I have several questions. The first question is, when does vesting start? My understanding is that in 2003, this was done as a planned development. And that is an unlimited, that goes on and on. So my first question is, when is it vested? And my second question is, when it does vest, and then they filed in 2019 for their deal, it's gone through 3 different owners over a 19-year period. And my question is, does this transfer? Does this, approval transfer even through different owners? That's my first question.
Okay. To answer that question, the Texas Local Government Code dictates or mandates to local municipalities what we can and can't do as far as vested rights. And Section 245 of the Texas Local Government Code outlines the vesting rights of developers. In some instances, the state has taken the vesting rights and giving that to the developers. So at the time that they receive the zoning, that the council, the governing body, gives them the approval of their zoning, and they've submitted a plan associated with that, that plan is approved and has vested rights with it unless the local regulations explicitly give a deadline that those expire. And at the time, our regulations did not have a expiration in them.
So you said to the developer, not to the PD?
No, it's to the development. So the developer can sell it to anyone else. They retain those rights that were approved in 2003.
Even though R1, had they come forward, it would have carried on, but because it's PD and it's unlimited, it carries those rights.
Yeah, they are still subject to those approved PD requirements that they were approved under in 2003.
My second question is, have they done the floodplain study and traffic impact study?
The floodplain studies and traffic impact studies are all required to be completed as part of the project and are typically conditions placed on them for approval.
So are they completed now?
I'll let,
I think that's what she's getting at.
Yeah, Bill Smith, city engineer. They have been completed by design engineers and submitted to the city. However, we have reviewed those and we have issued some comments on those. There's some issues on both the drainage study and the TIA.
Okay. It also says that it includes several lines that are missing in the line table, the L42 and L44. Have those been submitted and met?
Those I don't believe have been submitted yet, but those are a condition for approval. The developer's representative is here and is aware of all of these lists of items that have been.
Any other questions for Mr. Kettner? Related to the drainage and the TIA that have both been completed, and Mr. Smith, you'd mentioned there were comments made on those. Are those being required, or have they been implemented? What's been done with those recommendations?
Those were actually issued yesterday, so they've been returned to the applicant and the engineer, so they should be addressing them and resubmitting those documents.
Okay, so are they bound by this item put in front of us tonight to meet those requirements?
That's one of the conditions of the approval of the final plat, is to have those documents approved by city staff.
Just making sure. I do see that, but I just want to make sure.
Yes, that is item number 4.
Okay.
Conditions.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Mr. Robinson, Mr. Cleveland, Mr. Tiskus? Okay, Mr. Kettner, stay close, sir. We're going to pull up the applicant, Remington Wheat. Mr. Wheat, come forward, sir. Thanks for being with us tonight. If you will, if we could get your name and address, and we'd ask that you keep your presentation around 3 minutes, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, my name's Remington Weed. I'm with Bannister Engineering, 240 North Mitchell Road, Mansfield, Texas. Wouldn't say I so much have a presentation as much as I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, specific to the TIA or drainage or anything else that comes up. I'm prepared to answer any concerns that may come up.
Well, thank you for being willing to take those questions. Are there any questions for Mr. Wheat? Okay. Thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate it. If you'll stick around, we may have you come back up after we hear from our citizens. All righty, we have multiple speaker cards for this item. I am aware that Mr. Mark Ward Sr. has been named the representative for the body, but just on the record and to give everybody an opportunity to say if that's okay with them, I'm going to call off the speaker card. If you would indicate just yea or nay, I can state that verbally on the record. Mark Ward Jr., Mr. Ward, are you here? Are you okay with Senior speaking on your behalf? He indicated yes, sir, he was. Nathan Crowley, Mr. Crowley, thank you for being here. Are you okay with that, sir? Mr. Crowley indicated yes. Mr. Lockett, Dean Lockett. Yes, sir. Dean, are you okay with that, sir? Mr. Lockett indicated he was okay with that. Bobby Baker, my friend. Bobby, how you doing? Are you okay with him speaking on your behalf? Mr. Baker indicated yes. Keith Sanford. Mr. Sanford, are you okay with that, sir? Yes. All righty. Mr. Sanford indicated he was okay with that. Ms. Gilbert, Kathy? Yes. Are you okay with that, Kathy? Yes. All righty. Ms. Gilbert indicated she was fine with that. Lisa Edmonds, how are you doing? Good to see you. Are you okay with that, Lisa? Yes. All righty. Thanks for being here. Ms. Edmonds indicated she was just fine with that. Marilyn Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds, how are you? Are you okay if he speaks on your behalf? All righty, Ms. Reynolds. She indicated that was okay with her. And McLean, Ms. McLean, how are you today? Is it Karen? Karen? Corinne, I'm sorry. Are you okay if he speaks on your behalf? Yes. Okay, great. She indicated that was okay. All the speaker cards that I have, other than Mark Ward Sr., have indicated it's okay if Mr. Ward speaks on their behalf. Mr. Ward, you've got a lot on your shoulders here, sir. Come on forward. How are you?
I'm fine.
Mr. Ward and I spoke before the meeting, and he agreed that 7 minutes would be an adequate time for you to do your presentation. Are you still agree to that, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. If we can have your name and address for the record, and then welcome to the podium. We're glad you came forward to represent your neighbors and friends.
I hope we're doing well. My name is Mark Ward Sr. I live at 2209 Lewis Trail here in beautiful Weatherford, Texas, and I'm in the Bettinger Place, and I'm also the Bettinger Place president. Yes, association. Let me make sure I know how to advance these slides. I think I do. The first slide I just wanted to show for the city, when you do planning, you look at zoning maps like this, but for us, we live in the big box of Weatherford. Businesses, city, everybody. And we try to get along, and you and the team and the planning commission do a good job trying to fit all these projects in. Every once in a while, there's a slight friction, not real bad, but this particular project, as this lady nicely said, was zoned in 2003. And thank you for bringing through all the owners. I do want to point out that this plat looks flat, but it's really not flat, and I'll show that in a few minutes. But I'm showing you now the original plat that was shown. And I just want to point out kind of halfway down the left-hand side that when Bettinger was sold to Sandlin. This property, Sandlin thought it would become part of Bettinger. And for a long time, he sold, there was going to be a green space and a sidewalk behind that. At the least, we thought there would just be houses behind us. But it's much more, as you'll see in just a few moments. On the left, I'm trying to show what the original elevation topical plat showed. It's 65 feet higher at the top of that hill than it is in my backyard. And they tried to address it on the left-hand side with streets that were running sideways or like terraces to slow the water down. And if you'll notice at the bottom on that original plat, they tried to slow the traffic into Bettinger. On the right-hand side, you'll notice the water runs straight down those roads. They're going to try to level off some of that 65-foot hill. The traffic's going to be a major throughway coming right into Bettinger down at the bottom where Mitchell's going to continue. On the left-hand side, you'll see there's a deep creek in the bottom right-hand corner of the original plat. It's still there. It's got 14 feet deep gouges, trenches going through it. But on the plat that's presented, it looks like it's a nice 5 acres of land the HOA is going to maintain.
Mr. Ward?
Yes, sir.
I know we've got a time limit here, but I want you to slow down just a little bit because I
Okay.
really want us to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
It's clear you
Okay.
put a lot of time
I
into
didn't
this.
want to
and I
run out of
appreciate
time.
it. We'll work with you, okay?
Thank you
Let's
very
keep going.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think council will agree. We'll hear what you have to say here.
Okay, thank you. So you can see the original plat, as you brought up in 2003, the planning, when it was changed to PD, tried to account for drainage and throughput. And on the right-hand side, that flat pad originally doesn't show that. This is just a zoomed-in area of where the drainage is supposed to be in the storm drain plan. That's all of it for that entire downside hill. And in the upper right-hand side, you'll see I've shown you an environmental dam that they put to try to keep trash out of our storm drains and all. When they used those in Bettinger, our streets flooded. And people would go out and try to slide those off to allow the streets to drain. If you use those on this plat, it appears that all the water will leave Mitchell and come right into Bettinger Place. Now, as mentioned earlier, the storm drain plan hasn't been approved yet. There's conditions. Somebody said issues earlier. In the Planning Commission, one of the planning commissioners had a 3-minute-long conversation about why this shouldn't even be in front of the Planning Commission without a flood survey being completed. And he was concerned that this was not fully baked yet. At the end of the conversation, they said, well, we're going to move forward. They can't move and finalize this, even if you vote on it tonight, until all the conditions are met. A question was asked, what happens if it doesn't work? They said, well, that's the developer's risk, and they'll have to come back and change it. Well, we live at the bottom of the hill. We're the risk. If this isn't right, we live at the bottom of the hill. And since all of the plans haven't been fully baked, they're still waiting for the developer to respond back. We're kind of asking for you to send it back over to the Planning Commission and give us a month. See if they can get some of these issues resolved and give us an opportunity to talk to the developer. On the next slide, we didn't know there was going to be retaining walls behind our house. The blue squares are the feet height behind my house. I'm lot 11. I'll have a 7-foot retaining wall. Now remember, originally when we bought these houses, we were going to have a green space back there and a sidewalk. And, you know, we were okay if a house went back there, but where did the retaining wall come from? Presently, right now, we have no drainage issues. If you can see on my drawing, there's a purple square with a big arrow on it. That drain is handling the entire drainage of the backside of this hill, all into that one drain. So why are they having to build 7-8-foot tall retaining walls with a flood survey that's not even fully baked yet? You know, the way this process works, because it's already been zoned, we have no say-so on these retaining walls. They could have decided to put a 30-foot retaining wall up. And it's on their property, it's inside their little box, but my property's 1 foot offside of that retaining wall, and we have really not much input to that, as was mentioned earlier. If you look at the next slide, and again, I appreciate the time. I know y'all did not have to allow us to speak tonight. I really appreciate that.
We want to hear what you have to say. You're our customers.
Thank you very
please carry
much,
on.
every one of you. These are pictures of retaining walls. We know there's going to be a 7-foot retaining wall behind my house, but the developer has not told us what the material is going to be. In fact, on the blueprints, on the civil plan, I put the comment at the top, retaining wall design is not included in the plans. So it could be wood, it could be brick, it could be anything. This is a picture on the left-hand side of my backyard now. To scale, that picture in the middle will be what my backyard will look like, and I'm guessing at what material they'll use. And that last picture on the right will be the gap between that retaining wall and my fence. Now, they can't build a retaining wall on my property line by code, so is it gonna be a foot off? Who's gonna mow that foot? Who's gonna get behind there? How are they gonna maintain that retaining wall? What if it starts leaking? What if water starts running over it? So that's one of the concerns we have, is there's just too many unanswered questions to push this through. This is my neighbor's yard. They spent the extra money to put a iron fence in because of the green space and sidewalk. Even if there was a house back there, it wouldn't be that bad, but this is what their retaining wall is gonna look like. Again, I don't know about the material. My neighbor across the street who's here tonight, this is the view they'll have when they come out of their house. This is their first house. They're proud of their first house. And this is what they'll see. On the left-hand side is my house now, and my son's is on the right. The picture I've tried to cobble in to scale what my neighbor Nathan will see when he comes out of his front yard, or anybody else that drives down the street. 3 of our neighbors have already put their house on the market since this came out. We have at least 2 more considering moving out of Weatherford because of the unknown. And I am not saying the developer's going to do anything wrong. I'm not saying the Planning Commission did anything wrong. I'm just saying there's too many unanswered questions. There was no CCRs filed when I put this together yesterday and sent it in for tonight. I understand there might be some now, but we don't know the stain color of the fence, which we could work with the developer on. Oops, excuse me. This next slide is all the things that you do. The Planning Commission, working in the box with the developer, considers, will the water run off out of the box? Will the traffic impede out of the box? But in this process, when it's already zoned and we have little input, nobody has reached out to us. Nobody's asked us what our thoughts are. A few of the gaps that we perceive is when it's already zoned, the adjacent landowners do not get notified, even if their property's 1 foot of this box that this Waterford Park is being built. It was mentioned earlier, and you picked up on it, they're vested. So the nice, everybody's gonna have side load garages, doesn't apply to this development because they're vested. A lot of the pieces don't apply to this development that this city implemented in January because they're vested from 2003. The lot sizes on their plat are spec'd from the 2003 plans. Nobody in 2003, when they came to the zoning meeting, knew about Bettinger Place, or we'd be here tonight. So here's some potential gap-filling actions that maybe the city could implement moving forward, not only on this project, but others. Maybe foster a meeting before the developer spends a lot of money developing plats and talk about retaining walls. Flood plan, maybe you should follow the guideline that says it has to be done before it's approved. One planning commissioner was really emphatic for 3 minutes. At 36 minutes and 33 seconds in that meeting, he was like, why are we going with this?
Understood.
CCR documents should be completed where we as residents can come and look and see what color the roof's going to be, the fence is going to be. Maybe talk to the developer before and say, they don't know, but our HOA just did a fence initiative, and almost everybody in our neighborhood that had weathered fence stained their fences dark walnut. So our entire neighborhood is just about dark walnut now. If you come in with a light color, it's going to look like an albatross. So you can see up here, these are some of the things that could be done to maybe minimize the friction. Atwoods, I threw this up here.
Let's move through this here. We're kind of getting off topic.
No, I'm just going to say Atwoods is the same thing. It's already zoned. It's a potential 28-foot retaining wall behind that brand new house that somebody's going to buy in another 3 months and not even know about. I really appreciate you allowing us to talk. We've got some concerns. What's our retaining wall going to look like? Where did the retaining wall come from? What's the colors? What's the deal with the floodplain when it's not even being certified yet? We don't want no other chance to talk, because if you pass it tonight, then it just sits in the Planning Commission's office until they fix all the issues, and we never get to come back. That's the way the process works. So we're asking you tonight, we're pro-growth. We're not asking you to deny this development. We're just asking you to send it back over to the planning commission and let them do their work, finalize it, and then reapprove it.
Very well said. Mr. Ward, we appreciate your time. I don't know that I've ever seen a better presentation. I commend your preparation and your neighborhood's unification and being here tonight. It's clear that you care about your neighborhood and you care about your city too. We sure
We do.
appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank everybody.
Now I know why they picked you, Mr. Ward. Good job. Council, let me get to the right screen here. We've heard from staff. We've heard from our neighborhood folks. Obviously, this was a situation that was created in 2003. We've taken steps, as in January this year, to have a better grasp on these things moving forward. Do you have any questions or comments on this? I have a couple, but I would like to hear from you first. Mr. Robinson?
Could maybe Mr. Kettner respond to some of the concerns that were voiced?
Okay. Before you start on that, let's see if there's any other questions and then we consolidate them. Are you okay with that, Mr. Robinson?
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Have-
Mayor Pro Tem?
Have one. And you brought it up, Mr. Ward. My greatest concern is that this planning development is high density. And if you look at his backyard and the backyard of the planned development, you'll almost see two lots to his one lot. That's a lot of impervious space that is going to be greatly affected by the floodplain. And my concern is that I understand the vest goes with there, but my concern is I don't think we ferreted out the flood issues because between Bettinger Place and this planned development, there's not compatibility with, first of all, impervious space and flood, but also a myriad of other questions that come up from that on traffic, et cetera, that I don't think that we've ferreted out very well. And I'm having a really super hard time with seeing how we can approve this without that being really well done and well documented how that's going to work. Not just, I mean, we as a city have seen time after time retention ponds that have failed, flooding, designs that have failed. We haven't even ferreted out the flooding survey here.
Mr. Cleveland, you have a comment, question, sir?
Along her lines, can you clarify also, as you're going through this, if those items that have not been met were met, can you clarify legally what we can and can't do if it checks all the boxes, council too?
Okay,
Mr. Kettner, thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I'll do my best to hit all of these. If I don't hit them, just ask again, and I will go through those.
We already had to switch seats up here, so you're not going to top that, I promise. Just relax. Let's work through them one at a time.
All right. I'm just going to slide back through here just to, this will help answer some of the questions when we put some of these things side by side as far as that goes. As discussed in the side-by-side comparison, I want to draw your attention to the differences between it is the type of plat that is submitted. The plat that's on the right is the final plat. There are no details on that like you see in the preliminary plat that has the elevations. The purpose behind that is that's what's going to happen, how it exists right now. Our new processes that we've adopted that you have helped put in place this last year have put in some stop gaps in there that we haven't had before. And unfortunately, what we've gone through as stated is this was adopted in 2003, so they do have vested rights with the plan that was originally submitted. The lot number, the density is the same as what was, or fits into what was approved in 2003, and therefore that's what is approved. And without going back and having the council and the planning commission going through and rezoning that property by actions of the council, which would need to go through the complete process to happen. They are vested in that right, that zoning district that was approved with the PD and the plan that was submitted. The engineering design specifications as far as drainage and floodplain issues that come up. These are all technical aspects that are reviewed by our professional engineering staff. And they have adopted, when we adopted the changes to the zoning and subdivision regulations, they have updated their engineering design manual. And that was done by our professional staff and does meet the criteria that has been established by the minimum technical standards that we see here in Texas, as well as the best professional opinion that we have. I also know that this is something has been brought up that you want to discuss further drainage in a future meeting, and I believe that is scheduled for a meeting. But at this time, these are the adopted minimum standards. They meet those minimum standards, or will be required to meet that minimum standard in order to be approved. The plat will not be recorded until all of those items are submitted. The CC&Rs that are mentioned as far as neighbors having a right to voice their opinions on that, that's a civil matter similar to a neighbor between a neighbor. There's nothing that would prohibit anyone from talking with the applicant and discussing those items with the developer. However, ultimately, the developer owns the property, and he has the right within the code and the adopted regulations to build to those standards. And so that's what has been submitted so far. As far as the design plans, the specifics for the retaining walls, the specifications may not be in there, but that is required. Anything larger than 4 feet in height from the base of the foundation to the top has to be entered and submitted for that. It's not uncommon that they submit that with their site development permit, which is the details that our professional staff in our engineering department review in detail and ensure that all of these items are met. The drainage that is shown here that is going through the process of being reviewed and will continue through that until it is finalized and those plans are approved, then they can go and actually construct it. They can't flood out their neighbor. We have a regulation that's in place that doesn't allow that to occur. If something were to happen and a mistake was made, that would be something that we would correct in the process of doing that in the process of it being built. So the drainage does and will meet the minimum design specification requirements, and I assure you we have excellent staff that are licensed and have reviewed that in detail. So,
Is there a material requirement on retaining walls?
is there what?
Material requirement in our local code?
There is not. The Texas Local Government Code just recently, all materials, we're limited to what we can even say or ask for in material respects.
Can you briefly explain that to our audience, the legislative change that took place in the last session that influenced exterior materials and what you're referring to for other materials?
Yes, the state has preempted local governments from implementing requirements for exterior design materials that don't meet the building code requirements. So if the building code is silent on that, which almost all building codes are, the international building codes are silent on materials, a builder, a contractor can build it to any material that is approved by the code. And so
what that means is that in prior terms, we required a certain percentage of masonry on the exterior home, which could have included retaining walls and other items. That has been taken away from us locally. We have no control or restriction capability on those items anymore.
that's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure our audience knew that. It matters.
Yes.
And, okay. Did Mr. Kettner cover everything, answer your questions? Do we have any others for him?
Caleb, is there a setback requirement for retaining walls from adjacent property lines if they're over a certain height? So to Mr. Wood's point, when they get to be so high, is there any setback requirement from?
There's not any setback that I'm aware of in regards to zoning regulation, but we do have criteria to evaluate how close they are to another retaining wall where they would impact the existing retaining wall. So we do look at that, how it would impact other properties. And we also look at how they physically construct that retaining wall. If they're showing the retaining wall right on the property line, they're not going to be able to construct that retaining wall based on what's going to be required to install the base and the footing and all that stuff. So we keep an eye on all that stuff.
So there would There's no setback requirements for the retaining wall, just like it would be considered as a wall or a fence. They can go up to the property line, but they are still responsible for maintaining up to their property lines and for the maintenance of that wall or fence that was installed.
Any questions, other questions from Mr. Kettner? Or do we seek further clarification from him? Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask Mr. Wheat, would you mind coming back up, counsel? Do you mind if I ask him to come back up one more time?
Absolutely.
You have any items that you'd like to share with us briefly on this? And I have a
Sure.
question for you. Can I ask my question first? Can I ask my question first? What are you
I'm
gonna build that retaining wall out of?
Masonry.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's pretty typical for all the subdivisions we do. And it's also pretty typical to have a retaining wall that's roughly on a property line. And typically what's done in that scenario is, there's an existing fence that's right on the property line. We're needing to raise the grade at that same location. So our project will be the high side of the wall. The existing will be the low side of the wall. So what happens in that scenario is that wall actually has a little bit of a slope to it. It's not perfectly vertical, so it sets back just a little bit. So in this scenario, the toe of the wall would be right at the property line, maybe just a hair off so that they can build it, then remove the fence, coordinate with the owner, match the fence that they want to see there, put that fence on top of the new retaining wall is typically what's done.
sir. Okay. Do you have any other information you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Someone mentioned a drainage concern. The existing subdivision, Bettinger Place, has an inlet that has a design flow to that inlet. Part of our drainage design for this phase, we're actually matching the flow rate to that designed inlet, actually removing the inlet but placing curb inlets, matching that flow exactly. And then the rest of the flow is going to the floodplain to the east. Our flood study that's currently in review includes some on-channel excavation to mitigate any impact for that additional runoff that goes to the channel to the east. So, that's in review, not approved yet, but that's not unusual. A flood study that's fairly complex like that usually takes 6 to 8 weeks to be approved, 2 or 3 rounds of comments. It's a pretty complex model on both ends of the review. So, technically it's not approved at this moment, but there's no reason to think that it won't be approved. And then just as an example of, one of the conditions is that all of the public improvements will be constructed before the final plat is approved. So just as an example, it's a function of the process and the timing, not so much as it being incomplete right now. It's just where we are in the process. Based on the 30-day shot clock, the final plat has to be approved within 30 days. So, for a pretty complex project like this, it just takes longer than 30 days to get these items approved. Regarding the traffic impact analysis or traffic study, that has been completed also. As far as our TxDOT connection, we have concept approval from TxDOT to the existing road. That concept approval was contingent on a left turn lane and a right turn lane. The TIA actually indicated that a right turn lane was needed. The left turn lane didn't show to be needed. We're currently still showing it in our plans. It'll be up to staff to decide whether they ultimately want to see that. But
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mr. Wheat? Council? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your willingness to come back up. Council, any discussion? I think there's some discussion that this merits some discussion. Anybody?
I have one more question.
That's what we're here for.
Is it Mr. Wheat?
Yes.
Wheat
Yes, yes.
brought up a point, and Mr.
Is the question for Mr. Wheat or Mr. Kettner? Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry,
okay.
my brain must be,
We'll
senior
work through it
moment
together.
there, senior moment.
I'm with you.
He brought up the traffic, and so are these streets to our code specifications, current code specifications, or are they not the same as when you design this?
I'll preface that with everything's still under review, so things could change, but as presented with their first submittal, everything is meeting the minimum specifications of our roads. Based on the results of the resubmittal of the traffic impact analysis, some of those roads, even the existing road on Azle Highway, may require some additional improvements. We just don't have all that information.
Okay, well said. Any other questions, comments? I've got a few, couple, maybe multiple. To me, what we have here is an audience of constituents that have come here in a constructive, they said they're pro-growth, pro-development. Appreciate that approach. What we have is a developer that's trying to bring additional development, and they said they're in favor of that. What I need help processing through council is that I think the people in our audience they deserve a better explanation and an understanding of how that water is going to be handled. They deserve an explanation and an understanding on how the TIA is going to affect the development, which could have an impact, will have an impact on their neighborhood. And I think through education, comfort is established. It may not be everything that they want to see due to the 2003 filing and other things. We have limitations on what we can see. But in my opinion, I don't feel like you can approve these pending a lot of things. I think there's a lot of information that could be included in item 4 that could be presented publicly once known that would help our constituents have a better understanding of how these things with water and traffic will be managed effectively. This is a process that the applicant's going to have to go through anyway, and will have to be completed before they can start, if I understand. Just talking through this out loud. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. I want to do everything we can to put all the information we can in front of our customers. Thoughts?
One question that comes from that is, if I'm not mistaken, there's been some timeline requirements put down from the state as well at the last legislative session. What does that do? So if it's my understanding that we have basically the option to approve it or deny it for specific reasons within a 30-day window, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so what does an attempt to get that information? So typically we do rely on staff to bring this information in later and approve it to get through this process. But typically we don't have a whole lot of concern from neighbors and citizens. And so what does trying to bring that information back later, or bring it back later to put it back on the agenda due to our 30-day timeline that's handed down from the state?
At this point, they're at their time frame, so you would have to, at this point, either approve with conditions or deny for reasons that are outlined, that you would have, that's outlined in the code for you to be able to do that. And so
And failure to take one of those two steps,
would be automatic approval.
automatically approving.
Yes.
That's something that's changed in the last
Understand that.
legislative as well.
Yes, that preemption that the state has done that prevents us from having a lot of time to review these plans really hurts us to be able to have that time to visit if people want questions, because we are really hamstrung with that 30-day time.
I think the phrase that I kept hearing at the last legislative session was unintended consequences. I think that unintended consequences of decisions that were.
I don't want the council to be rushed because of the 30-day shot clock. We have to put our customers first. I think that's the intention of us. And if that requires us to have these things be completed and that applicant go back through the process, I'm not opposed to that. You've had concerns, as you mentioned, Mayor Pro Tem, in the past. We have to do everything we can to educate, to inform, and to give our existing clients the assurance that things are being handled to the best of our ability, and that they have all the information that they have. That way, as they look up the hill, there's a massive elevation change here. As they look up that hill, they know they're a little bit more educated on what's being done to help protect their property that's downstream. I know that the applicant is responsible for their water and for all these things, but hearing that doesn't necessarily give the people downstream the comfort and the confidence when things really still haven't been studied, analyzed, and recommendations and requirements been made. And that's my concern.
Share that concern, and I think in this particular instance, there are too many unknowns still. And we've seen failures where we didn't, thoroughly vet this process. So I'm with you, Mayor. It is my recommendation that we deny this because of those very factors you just stated.
I've got a question about denial. What does that reset them to? So it's got to be denial based on a specific condition that doesn't meet our plat requirements.
Yes, so
What does that do to the applicant starting the process over?
the applicant would start the final plat process all over again. He would reapply, re-go through the application process, and complete this process and go back through the whole process. You do have in your alternatives there, the alternatives, there's 3 alternatives that staff has outlined. You can deny, as it's stated in there, that the Zoning Commission, or in this case, the City Council, may recommend disapproval of the request based on the conditions that are listed. So those 4 or 5 conditions that are listed, you can deny it for those 5 items. And those are the specific items that the state law would protect us from any actions. We would be fulfilling the minimum requirements that the state mandates to us.
What does that timeline look like for the process starting back from the beginning?
He would, upon resubmittal, it would be another 30-day timeframe.
It's gonna depend when they resubmit.
So the next question is with denial, they'd have to go back through planning and zoning again
That's correct.
and get back on the schedule to come back to us again?
That's correct. And just to clarify too, that even though it would go back through that process, there is still no notification process to the adjacent property owners. At this time, if the neighbors are interested in that, I would encourage them to contact the developers directly to get those comments vetted early.
Based on the crowd tonight, I don't think they just need us to notify them. They're keeping an eye on it. So, okay. Those are great questions, Mr. Cleveland. Mayor Pro Tem had a comment, and council, this is up. If there are no more questions or comments, this is an action item. We have 3 options that staff's presented. Number 1 is to recommend the approval of the request as proposed. 2 is to approve the request subject to the conditions. And then 3 is to disapprove, would not be forwarded to us except on appeal, and that would be pending it not currently meeting 1 or more of the items listed 1 through 5. Council, what's your pleasure?
I'm going to make a motion to disapprove based on the items stated.
Motion on the floor by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Mayor will second that motion. Is there any discussion on 5B before we call for a vote?
I actually have one last question, I guess, for the applicant, would this in any way derail the overall project, costing an additional 30 or 45 days?
So this is kind of a product of the order that things happen as far as submittal. These plans that are in review and are conditions of approval,
I completely, and I understand the process, I'm just.
they wouldn't be accepted for review until we made a plat submittal. And that plat has to be acted on within 30 days. If it was up to us, we wouldn't have submitted the final plat until we had this.
Understand.
So really the biggest impact is the developer has to pay another application fee. Other than that, it probably doesn't affect our timeline overall.
Mr. Cleveland, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. Do you have another one? I'm sorry.
I do, I have a follow-up one, it's not for you, but staff, so the application process fee is a required fee for starting back over, so basically paying for the same fee. Is there a way to waive that fee?
That would, yes, that fee could be waived.
That way we're being fair to everybody, we're giving them a little more
That's a great
opportunity to get their
suggestion,
information.
Councilman Cleveland.
I did have one suggestion or idea that it's not a new idea, it's something that we've done in the past. We've had regular meetings with HOAs in the city before COVID. We kind of had to stop doing that with COVID, and we'd be happy to try to meet with the HOA similar to how we did before. So I just make that up.
I appreciate you being willing to do that, but I think it's also the responsibility of the developer, the applicant. If they want to have a relationship with the people downhill, and I think everybody does, that's why y'all are here tonight, I would encourage him to reach out to his constituents in Bettinger Place, have a meeting. And I think when people sit down at the table, oftentimes they come up with a lot of things they can work together on, and there's a bond before construction even starts that forms a community. And I know that's what you have out there, and I know that's what you want to have going forward. So I think we may have a minor delay, but I think there's really an opportunity for some clarification, and I think there's an opportunity for a relationship to be established between this applicant and the existing neighbors.
Yes, sir.
So
I don't know if it's true, but I've heard equally informed people rarely disagree. I
true.
might disagree with that if they put Republican and Democrat next to it, but other than that, it's probably a true statement.
you had to go there, right? Council, we do have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. I've seconded that on 5B. Is there any other discussion, comments, questions, debate, anything? Let's call for a vote on 5B, council.
Do we need to put any wording on or just give direction to staff as far as waiving the?
Make this something y'all could probably.
The recommendation has to be to deny based on the 5 conditions that aren't met.
No, he meant.
No, waiving the application fee, should that be included? Okay.
We do have on the record, we've committed to agree to waive that fee for the applicant. Not trying to slow anything down, we're looking for clarification, and certainly you're our partner too. And so we're gonna get you guys connected, and let's make that happen. Mr. Robinson, thanks for that clarification. Anything else before we call for a vote on 5B? Let's do that, let's vote on 5B. Please indicate yea or nay. That passes 5-0, and that was for, just to make sure I have it right, disapproval. All righty, let me figure out where we are here. All parties, thank you for being here. 5D is next, if I'm correct, council. If not, correct me now.
That is correct.
Consider award of bid number 2021-012 for MHD Construction for library restroom renovation in the amount of $136,712.69 with a not-to-exceed amount of $158,587.69 in the event alternative proposal is needed. Mr. Deal, welcome, sir.
Honorable Mayor, council members.
And thanks for your patience with us.
Oh, you're fine. Dustin Deal, Director of Municipal Community Services. And what you have before you today is a complete and much-needed renovation of the Weatherford Public Library restroom. The scope of work includes a complete demo down to the studs. So it's going to be completely redoing the plumbing and installing new fixtures, installing new wall backers, hard pan ceilings, finishing the ceilings and the walls, installing new tiles and new walls, installing new mechanical fans, lights, partitions, handrails, flushometers, etc. This will also include installing new countertops, and all fixtures will be wired, automatic, sensored fixtures. And then finally, resurfacing the doors. One of the components that's driving cost up for this project is accessibility. We must relocate some of the walls to add handicap drinking fountains, as well as additional room for handicap stalls and toilets. With the library renovation, there is also an alternative bid for plumbing replacement. This is a precautionary bid due to existing issues that we've had at the library. Since this bid was put in, staff now believes that we've identified the plumbing issues on the exterior of the library building, consisting of old clay pipes that have bellied under and causing some flow issues. At this time, staff does not foresee replacing the interior plumbing inside of that alternative bid. $150,000 was originally awarded for this project. As for the bidding process, staff advertised the bid per the city's finance policies. Internally, facility maintenance gave a handful of tours and was contacted by some of the construction project advertising companies that take our project and advertise them to their groups. Even with that, we only had one contractor submit a bid, and that was MHD Construction Incorporated. Staff has worked with MHD Construction Incorporated successfully on multiple projects in the past and has a good working relationship with this company. Frequently, MHD Construction Incorporated comes in as one of the most cost-effective bidders and quoters on our projects. With that being said, council could elect to reject this bid and have staff re-advertise this project in an attempt to get more bidders. At this point, staff recommends awarding this project to MHD Construction Inc. For the $136,712.69 with a not to exceed of $158,587.69 in the event that the alternative bid is needed. And then there is a representative here tonight from MHD in the event that there's more technical questions about the construction. But otherwise, I'll be glad to answer questions that I can.
Questions for Mr. Deal on item 5D, council?
I don't really have so much questions. It's just a couple of comments. The reason I pulled it off, number one, we'll start with, I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is a much-needed project, and I am committed to the fact that we're going to get this project done. And having said that, we also are all living in a time where we're watching joke memes and stuff go around about construction material because it's going up so fast. I saw one the other day that showed we'll trade plywood for a 2020 or newer car. So Prices are skyrocketing, and you look at this total price, and it seems high, but as a construction company owner, I can tell you, you don't usually question prices unless you've looked at it and you've done the bid yourself to see what those costs are. My only concern for clarity and just being fiscally responsible is that we ended up with one bid. And I'm not gonna start second guessing that bid and saying those guys are way out of line or anything like this. I just feel that we do ourselves a disservice for clarity if we don't try to seek out a couple more bids to just clarify that that number's where it needs to be. That's my reasoning for pulling it off.
Well stated. Other comments, questions?
I'll agree with Kevin. I've been down and looked at the bathroom at the library. It very much needs it. It's old and tired and has served us well, but it's time to move on. But I agree that we should seek out a couple more bids. The price feels high. I'm not an expert, and I do know that building materials are very high, but with a couple more bids, we may feel that this is the direction to go and the right contractor, but without doing that, I think we might be making mistakes. So.
Well said. Any other comments?
What's the square foot on the project, do we know?
Yeah. I think it's right at 420. I think is what I had written down for that.
Do you have any idea why we did?
I can only speculate, to be honest. We did have some people that we touched base with, like I said, that decided not to put in any additional bids or put in an actual bid for it. You know, we do work with a lot of local contractors. Anything that's over $5,000, we go out and request quotes and bids for contractors. And a lot of time, I mean, the lowest bid ends up winning. So a lot of the people that are typically more expensive or don't get the bid. And we do see some bidder apathy or some quoting apathy, if you will, from some of that from time to time. So we're always looking for new contractors to work with.
Mr. Cleveland, do you have anything to add on the status of the industry and kind of what you're seeing as far as folks are busy? I mean,
Craziest time I've seen in construction in my lifetime. Projects, you know, things like our police department, guaranteed maximum public safety.
public
Pardon me.
safety, sir.
You know, guaranteed maximum pricing. I'm watching people that have done guaranteed maximum pricing that started them in 2019, and they're just really getting projects underway, and they're looking at 5 and 10% losses because the market on material is changing weekly. There's people limiting steel supplies or limiting plywood and lumber purchases. It's only a matter of time before materials high. It's only a matter of time before labor starts trying to catch up with that. So I don't see a change in the near future, but I think we do ourselves an injustice if we don't at least try to find a couple more just to clarify.
I see comfort myself in getting some other data to verify it with. And I think at that point that this group will have complete comfort in our job is ultimately to turn every nickel of taxpayer dollars into a dime every time we have a chance. I think that's, the project is something that we're committed to. I think my comfort would be higher if we just had a price verification process for the project.
And so with that, I will say, like, I will repeat again that I absolutely support getting this project.
Sure.
done for you. We're going to get it done for you. But with that, I will motion that we reject this.
Motion on the floor by Councilman Cleveland for reject item 5D. Councilman Robinson has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion before we call for a vote on 5D? Hearing none, let's vote on 5D. Rejection of 5D passes 5-0. Let's go to 5E. Consider award of bid number 2021-013 to MHD Construction for City Hall's restroom renovation east side in the amount of $99,169. Welcome back, sir.
Be respectful of your time and everybody else's. I can tell you I pulled this one for the same exact reasons, same conversation. So you guys feel the need to have it again, we can have it again. Otherwise, I can make a motion that we reject it at this time.
Councilman Cleveland's prepared to make a motion, council, if there's no discussion. There has a motion been made for rejection by Councilman Cleveland, a second by Councilman Robinson. Any discussion on 5E before we take a vote on that item? Hearing none, let's vote on 5E. Please indicate yea or nay. Rejection passes 5-0. Again, we're committed to the process. Let's verify by getting some alternative data. 5G, consider request for final plat approval of the Montclair subdivision, 89 lots totaling 23.706 acres between West Park Avenue and South Bowie Drive, situated in the B, B, and C Railroad Company Survey, abstract number 145, the J.A. Yeoman Survey, abstract number 1692. I'm going to stand, 1692 is that number, and the J.M. Gibson Survey, abstract number 509, City of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, SBD 2020-0020. Welcome back, Mr. Kettner.
Mayor and Council, you have in your packet the complete staff report in regards to this Montclair subdivision, which 89 lot subdivision that has gone through the preliminary plating process and is been brought before you after going before the Planning Commission for approval of their final plat, which was approved on April 14, 2021, unanimously by all present at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, with the 9 conditions listed in the staff report. And any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Questions from Mr. Kettner on 5G?
I have, obviously. I'm assuming, I was a little confused about this. This one was a planned development, but you said that it meets the residential conformity of the 7,200 square foot minimum adopted in the planned development, but this is not even though this was done in 2003, it has stayed with the same developer. Is that correct?
I believe it was done in 2019.
I'm sorry.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm sorry.
for the Mon.
03 was the other one.
I'm sorry.
I mean, Mark.
Right. This one has the going from the R1 family residential that surrounds the 7.5 residential. I don't get that.
Okay, so what happened on this project is this project was already started. It was zoned R1 under our old zoning regulations, rezoned to R1. The city did a citywide rezoning map update in which we rezoned almost a lot of the properties that were undeveloped around it and across the city in those areas to bring those undeveloped properties under the expectations of our general plan that has been adopted and our new zoning map that is now adopted. And so the R1 district as it exists, as it was approved when they did their rezoning on this project, they were vested under the zoning of that. They had already filed and processed with their plans. Therefore, they have vested rights under the R1 zoning district.
Okay, so the R1 zoning district, they don't go up because they had already vested prior to the change.
That's correct. They were vested prior to the change of our zoning regulations to the 7.5.
Okay.
You know, and we're learning as we go forward with this, because what we're learning is there's a pipeline of things that have been approved.
Yes.
and until we get that pipeline emptied or our new things enter that. I think we're gonna run across this periodically, and it's not something that we necessarily like, but we also have limitations on what we can do to have an effect on them.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned today is be very careful not to do a PD because it has an unlimited time frame.
Okay. Other comments? Let me get council discussion, anything on this? We do have an applicant's representative here, Casey Stevenson. Mr. Stevenson, would you like to come forward, sir? I'm sorry you had to wait a few minutes. If you will, let's have your name and your address, and you can keep your presentation. You'll see a timer up here if you can stick within that time constraint.
Sure. My name is Casey Stevenson, 485 Millwood, Highland Village, Texas. I'm with Peloton Land Solutions. We're the design engineer on this project. And just a little snapshot of where we're at in the project. The drainage study's been approved, the TI has been approved, the construction plans have been approved, and we are very near the final bit of construction. And I guess to that end, I'll answer any other questions you may have.
Appreciate you being willing to answer the question, sir. Thank you for coming over tonight.
Yes, sir.
From Highland Village, and be careful getting home. Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Discussions on 5G, council, it's an action item. Mr. Robbins, would you state your motion, sir, verbally?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for final plat.
With 7 conditions, sir?
With thank you for,
okay.
with all the conditions.
These are a little bit tricky, just want to make sure we get it all right.
Absolutely,
Mr.
with the
Tiskus.
conditions.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion on 5G before we move forward with a vote?
Clarify, there's 9 conditions.
9 conditions.
Good job.
I only show 7. Mr. Kettner, can you come up and clarify the number of conditions? You show 9?
Yes, sir. There are 9 conditions on the cover page. It's on the staff report. I point you to the staff report that you have in your packet. It has a total of 9 conditions.
Stand by. Point of order, and looking for clarification from Mr. Zellers, the agenda item and the public agenda shows 7 items. Mr. Zellers? Oh, hello, I forgot you were up here now. The agenda, public agenda shows 7 items, the staff report shows 9. Just want to make sure, how do we proceed in a correct fashion? Or does this need to be represented when all the 9 items are on the agenda publicly?
The agenda item does not show.
Correct.
Does not show the number of items.
Correct. I have a level, I did not make the motion in the second, but I have a level of discomfort with moving forward on an item where all of the 9 requirements are not listed. What is your recommendation on that,
Well,
council?
they're listed in the staff report.
Okay. Does that meet all the legal requirements and responsibilities to our public?
The agenda items, what you're looking at on your.
Okay.
And it's in Granicus too.
Okay. I understand. My concern is, has the public seen it? And if they had access to those last 2 items?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Mr. O'Top, do you have a recommendation or clarification?
Possibly read the 9.
So, the staff report is an attachment to the agenda report, so you can make reference to that. Those were available to anyone if they had concerns about that. So I think for transparency's sake, all the comments are out there for everyone to be able to see.
Yes, sir. I think we all want to do it right the first time.
Mr. Mayor.
You want me to restate that?
Would you be okay and maybe read off items 8 and 9 specifically? Or ask Mr. Kettner to read those off. Mr. Kettner, would you mind, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson, you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Item 8 and item 9. Item 8 is detention ponds shall be contained within drainage easements. And item 9, access easement shall be provided across lot 1X, block 4.
Okay, great. This is outside of our normal process, but due to the fact that 2 more items have been read off, I want to make sure, is there anybody in the audience that has items of concern or questions on these 2 items that have just been listed? Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Zellers?
The council would also have discretion to add items at this time.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So you can just say you're adding those 2 items.
Mr. Robinson, you want to have fun with that?
All right.
And I'm sorry for my questions, but I want to make sure we get this right, and it may be a little bit.
I'd like to restate the motion then, that that I move that we approve the final plat with the 9 conditions that staff recommends.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Robinson as presented verbally. Is there a second? Mr. Tiskus, you concur, sir?
So moved.
All righty. Any more discussion on 5G before we call for a vote? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time. 5G, let's vote on it.
Now I've messed it up.
There was a change there, so it may take just a minute to get there, if everybody can be patient with me. Please cast your vote on this item, please, for yea or nay. Item 5G passes 5-0. Item 6 on the agenda, regular agenda item 6A is consider and/or act upon approval of Resolution R 2021-09, requesting the temporary closure of U.S. Highway 180 for the annual Parker County Peach Festival. Looks like we're going to have a peach festival this year. Welcome, Mr. Palacios.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Council, Manny Palacios, Director of Transportation and Public Works. We will be having a Peach Festival this year. It will be Saturday, July 10th. And so basically, I want to show you the map. Basically every annual, except last year we didn't have it, but this year is going to be bigger and better. You can see here, this is the footprint of the Peach Festival. Peach Festival is sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. And so basically part of the Peach Festival includes closing some streets. You can see we got some side street, local streets. And one of the major streets is Palo Pinto, which is highway number 180. And with that, every year when we do Peach Festival, we have to submit a text dot permit. And so basically the city must show its support for the event in the form of a resolution that will accompany the permit closure request. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for this fine gentleman? Hearing none, there is a motion for approval by the Mayor Pro Tem Wilder, second by Matt Tiskus. Any discussion on 6A before we call for a vote? And thank you for your presentation, sir. Let's vote on 6A. Please indicate yea or nay. Passes 5-0. Item 7 on the agenda is future agenda items. Mr. Hotop.
I have none.
City Council.
Nothing.
Yes, sir.
All righty, we'll go to item 8, citizen comments on non-agenda items. I believe we have 2 speakers this evening. Mr. Darwin Yeary. Mr. Yeary, thanks for your patience with us tonight. Mr. Yeary, welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Once you get up and get settled, if we can have your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Well, Mayor, I have just a little bit more. Might take a few minutes more.
No,
I'll try to make it as shortly as
You've got 3
shortly as I
minutes this
can.
evening, sir.
We have a situation. We have
before
a
you start.
situation. Darwin Yeary, 110 Harmon Street here in Weatherford.
And you understand you have 3 minutes, correct? Mr. Yeary.
Regrettably, I hate to come down here.
Mr. Yeary, do you understand you have 3 minutes, sir? Please acknowledge that to me.
Yes, sir, but I'm asking
Thank you.
just a few more minutes.
Not going to be able to do that tonight, but please proceed.
Okay, I have come to refile an ethics violation for 2 members of the Weatherford City Council. And we have a situation here where I would really regretted to even come down here. But yet, after the Encore decision to charge the public to raise their utility rates, I'm concerned that it may happen here. Well, I want to tell you, the elderly, the disabled, and the low-income people of Weatherford don't need any more raises. One of our people that's on the council here has raised with his hand utility raises in the past when his wife, who works in one of the biggest charities in town, is trying to give the people that are hurting the most, the poor, the elderly, and the disabled, helping them with the utilities. But however, it hadn't gotten any better. and it's really difficult for these people to live. And that's enough on that. The other part of this is regretful to me. The church that I go to, one of the members of this council, has got up before the church, before the closing prayer, and has urged from the pulpit for the people of the church to vote Republican, right-wing, Donald Trump. My church that I go to is his church. I'm not going to mention any names up here. All I know is my church could lose its tax exemption doing that. And I have already filed with the Secretary of State on this, and I've been asked verbally by the Democratic Party to come down here and report this. I'm a voter here in Weatherford and live in Parker County, and I don't particularly appreciate that. So that's my decision, in which I hated to do. You know, when there's a Christian brother involved, this is a touchy situation, and you hate to say anything about it. But there's rules to go by, and this is a nonpartisan panel up here. That's what we know, and that's what we've been told. Let's keep it like that, and thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, Mr. Geary. Let's move on to Ms. Norris, Vonda Norris. Ms. Norris, how are you? Come on up. Thanks for your patience. Once you get settled, if we can have your name and address, then you'll have 3 minutes, Ms. Norris.
Vonda Norris, I own Quick Print, 101 College Avenue. I've heard a lot tonight about letting the people know what you're doing, and we were not informed of these parklets at all. The restaurants were, the 3 restaurants that it is benefiting. I understand it's already set in stone, but I'm not happy about it. The one on my quadrant is almost up, and I've talked to some of the other people around the square that are service-oriented people, and those parklets are not going to help us. It's in the street, taking up 4 of our parking spots. Most of my people that come to me are over 50, and one of the things that they come to us for is to easily get in and easily get out. Mind you, the square is not easy to get in and out of, period, but they have managed. We already have the Weston Hoover building that's already in construction, that nobody can help that. You know, that was unforeseen, and we understand that. But now there's construction with these parklets and taking 4 spots, and then soon will be the destruction of the theater. And so then we're going to have that construction to deal with. I was told basically we've been hit hard on our southeast quadrant, but I'm just not real happy that we were not informed of what you guys were doing, and it was approved kind of behind our backs. I shouldn't have to come to these meetings every week or every month or whenever they are to find out what's going on. I guess if I want to know, I guess I should be here, but I just don't have the time. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we were not informed until they were literally going in.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Norris, we appreciate you coming forward and sharing your thoughts tonight and
All
for
right,
your patience
thank you.
with us.
I think we can always do better with communication, but I think we can always address with the statement of fact. Could you tell us how many additional parking spots we've added on Church Street in that southeast quadrant?
So we reorganized and added, and I'll look to Manny for the total number there, but I think the number I reported to the Commissioner's Court on Church Street was 47, and then there's about 50 that are being reorganized and added on Austin and Trinity, which would be the northwest quadrant there. Thank you. So, and just 2 statements of fact, if I may, Mayor. So there is no conflict of interest that exists from a council member's spouse working for a nonprofit and providing utility bill assistance. And additionally, being a locally elected official does not preclude a person from supporting or endorsing a political candidate at the state or national level.
Thank you for that clarification on both items.
I know it's a fact that I appreciate serving with good Christian people, as well as people who have spouses and themselves serve the community and charitable organization.
Any other citizen comments on non-agenda items from the floor? Hearing none, we'll move to item 9, adjournment. Motion by Jeff Robinson for adjournment, second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilder. Let's vote on it. Indicate yea or nay, please. Passes 5-0. We are adjourned at 7:54. Missed it, didn't we?